I can. Okay. All right, bring everybody's attention. We're going to get started here. Thank you for everybody that's come out. Thank you to everybody that's participated the last couple of days with Ben and his team. I'm as excited as you are to see what he's come up with. I have not seen it. There's a side to me that is very nervous. Because I don't like surprises, but I trust him. As I shared with those of you that were in the leadership one, Ben has worked in 2 communities where I know the managers personally. In fact, there was 3 communities we shared a common border for about 5 years. So I knew both managers, and they highly recommended Ben as a group and said they would hire him back. So I guess with that, you couldn't ask for a better recommendation. But I'm as excited as you are to see what an outsider's view and how he can help us create our brand as we go forward in the years ahead. So with that, Ben, the time is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I want to start off by thanking everybody. I see so many familiar faces that played a role during the process this week. We had some great input meetings all day on Tuesday, and then we were kind of all around town with cameras yesterday, invading people's privacy and taking pictures and that kind of stuff. So for the most part, if I'm being completely blunt, everything that you're going to see tonight was created since about, I don't know, 10 o'clock this morning when we finally landed on what we thought the right move was. There's a lot more to come out of this process. We've got a fantastic partnership of organizations that are working together and that have made a commitment to help tell Claremore's story and move this community forward in the direction that its citizens are excited about. And we've got another trip planned in April where we'll be coming back and doing some additional photography and delivering some additional products for all those organizations. But I think what you're going to see tonight will be a pretty good sneak peek as to what we're recommending for the community. The first thing that I always like to do is tell you a little bit about some of the stuff that we heard. Your community is an extremely proud one, and you have a lot to be proud of. You're a community that sounds like it has had the difficulty of figuring out how to tell a community story when you have so many different stories to tell. And many times you end up landing on one or landing on this, and then next thing you know, before anybody's really thought anything about it, it ends up with Will Rogers' head on it. Everything's got Will's head on it, you know? And it's like, well, we can't figure out what we should be, put Will's head on it. Nobody's going to argue with that, right? Well, you know, I was hired by Mount Airy, North Carolina, where they filmed the Andy Griffith Show. And they had come to the realization, this has been probably 8 years ago now, they had come to the realization that the economy that they had based off of people wanting to come and see Mayberry was bound to go away eventually. So they wanted to go ahead and start preparing for diversifying the way that they can tell their multitude of stories. And Route 66, that's probably not ever going to go away. Will Rogers, I mean, he has been around longer than he was alive. His legacy has lasted. His comments are as relevant today as they were when he made them. But you are constantly crafting new stories and new things to celebrate. So one of the things that we hope to do is we hope to create a platform that will allow in the growth of all of the success stories you have to share. Now, we're going to start off by talking about graphics. And the first thing that we always do is we try to collect a color palette, a uniform color palette to tie together the different organizations in the community and the different messages that might come out of the community. And what I did here was I took a collection of photos from around the community, and then I loaded them into this cool little program that spit out some of the colors that were seen the most in the photos. So when you ask where do these colors come from, the answer is they come from the context of your community. But we also wanted to make sure that they were colors that are vibrant and alive. There's some colors that start to lean towards the red of zebras, which I've never said before. There are colors that start to lean towards the red and blue of Rogers State University. And there are also some additional colors that kind of bring the community to life. So I will say, disclaimer, things on the screen are not always as they appear. So I can't guarantee that what you're seeing is exactly the color palette, but what we have is, well, I can actually tell you, this right here is not purple. Don't get scared. Purple is scary. I don't ever use purple, okay? I'm an anti-purple person, so it's actually just a dark blue. We have 2 blues, 2 greens, and then kind of 2 orange and reds in kind of that warm category. It gives us kind of some tones, some sky tones, some green tones, some earth tones, and then some kind of energy tones. Very, very simple. I mean, that's not hard to argue with. 6 is a really, really great base. Gives us an opportunity to have kind of a collection of colors, but then also pair those colors off in simple systems for some of the other organizations. Then from there, we started to look at typeface. Now, in doing this, I got to study 2 of the most recent identities, graphic identities that have been employed by the city. The most recent, which is on a couple of the water towers and some of the signage, and has been pretty well adopted community-wide. It's currently used as the chamber logo. It has the gradiated C, and then it is in all capital letters. It's actually it's called small caps, and has all caps underneath it. Now, the great logo was the one before that, the Wild Picante logo. Everybody knows what we're talking about. On the water tower over next to RSU campus. If the story that I heard was correct, that logo was actually developed by SMG during the process of building the Expo Center. And we have an Expo Center in my hometown that was managed by SMG, and when I heard that, I said, that makes complete sense. Because it looked exactly like what SMG normally does. They were thoughtful enough to underline more with a fantastically flowery brush, but I think that everybody agrees that neither one of those identities really captured the dynamic nature of the community. So we have to look at typeface, and what I did here was I selected 2 typefaces that would be able to be the typefaces that we draw all of our identities from. Now, the primary typeface was the typeface that I wanted Claremore to appear in the majority of the time, and I wanted it to be extremely attractive. I did something that I don't normally do, and I selected a script style typeface. And so it has a very nice flow to it. It's very, very attractive. It also, because you're using a script, it means that every single time you use it, it's never going to be all caps. That would look in my business what we call funkified. So why do we do this? Why do we select a typeface like this that is so unique all on its own? The point of what we want the organizations to do is to begin to adopt this uniform typeface, and especially the identity of this destination, so that we can understand that everyone is promoting the same place. When the chamber is doing the chamber's job, and the CVB is doing the CVB's job, and the city is doing the city's job, and Main Street's doing Main Street's job, and CETA's doing CETA's job, they're all making Claremore better. Not the city of Claremore, or not the business community, the destination, Claremore. So we selected a typeface, a script typeface for that primary, and for the secondary, we selected a contemporary clean sans serif. Now, for those of you that are traditionalists, you might say, whoa, I don't like the word contemporary, that's scary. It's not really scary. This is going to be fine. These are the typefaces. The top is a very, very attractive script, but it maintains legibility. The secondary, this sans serif, one of the nice things about the sans serif is this sans serif has 4 different weights in it. It has a light, a regular, a medium bold, and a bold. That gives us tremendous variation in our brand extension without changing typefaces. Typefaces are kind of like kids. The more you get, the more it starts to sing. So we want to try to keep it in 2, and I could say that. I got 5 at home. So, okay. So we've seen colors. We've seen typeface. Now we're going to move into the message. And the message, the way that we do this is by delivering what we call a brand statement. Now, here's my little disclaimer. I've not had a lot of time on this. There probably are going to be spelling mistakes. You're not allowed to hold that against me. And if you are a retired English teacher, hold all comments to the end of the presentation. Okay? All right, so here we go. We are Claremore, Oklahoma. Named for a towering and enlightened chief, Claremore holds stories of the Osage, the Cherokee, and the cowboy alike. We have tales of the mighty railroad, the relaxation of the radium baths, and the romance of America's greatest road, Route 66. But it becomes clear that we have more to share. Our storytellers, like Will Rogers and Lynn Riggs, shared our humor with the world and made everyone fall in love with Oklahoma, our home. And we are still telling the world about Claremore, from our global manufacturing to our cutting-edge innovation being fostered on the campus of Rogers State University. We are a community of museums, from the Will Rogers Museum adorning the hill to the turrets of Belvedere Mansion, from the stories of the Claremore Museum of History to the amazing collection at the J.M. Davis Arms Museum. But it will become clear that we have more for you to explore. From the Claremore Expo Center to the Robson Performing Arts Center, culture thrives here. From our lake to our parks to our mountain bike paths, Claremore gives you more time to enjoy your home. We celebrate our historic downtown full of warm offerings and old-fashioned finds, from unique boutiques to rare antiques, from delicious diners to tasty tea rooms. Claremore truly has a vibrant heart. But it's clear we have more for you to enjoy. We are home to unique events and exciting athletics. We're a place that still knows what communities are, where we treat neighbors like family and visitors like neighbors. We invite you to discover the place we call home. We are Claremore. We are on the right track, and we are not sitting still. We are moving forward, working together, and doing more to craft a bright future for our community. We are Claremore, Oklahoma. Clearly more. So you bring... So you start to see how with the typeface, with the colors and the message, you begin to create this platform to tell all of these stories. Now, I want to jump right into the system, and then we'll be able to see how this grows. But one of the things that we always like to do, one of the first things that we like to check is the last thing you need is a logo that can only be used one way. So we check it in black and white. We check it in reverse to make sure that that works. Then we go through and we do color checks, and you can have one color versions of all of these using those signature colors of the system. Then you can start to explore what we call brand extension, where we bring in, we can change that modifier to say Claremore, Oklahoma. We can have adapted placement to give us the ability to use it in different layouts, whether it needs to be more horizontal, whether it needs to be more stacked. Then we can even bring in modifiers and move what's below it above it and have a downtown destination identity. Starting to create this image of all of these different stories intertwined together to create the best of America. And I will tell you, we went through a lot of stuff. We started asking ourselves a lot of questions about, how do these words ring? How does Western connect to you? The last thing that you need to do is be boot scoot book. It's like Western is such a loaded word. It is so dictating in its personality. Route 66 is absolutely dictating in a time period. And it's like, next thing you know, you take that and you look like everything has to be made out of chrome. You need all the different pieces to be interchangeable. With downtown, you can begin to explain these different elements that the icon can come to represent, whether it's dining that you want to develop and grow, working downtown, developing new living options for your downtown, entertainment options, and the shopping. You all have got a phenomenal collection of downtown retail. One of the best that I have seen. It takes visitors to get out on the sidewalk and explore it for themselves. But I tell you, you could check my phone right now. You will see a series of photos that I sent back home saying, do you like this dress or do you like this dress? And that's not typical because I will say the stuff that you have here is not enough that it's here. It is of high caliber and style. And I think that is tremendously positive for you all. Again, being able to take that derivation for downtown will be very, very important for us. But when we start to get into the magic of this is when we move into what we call brand extension. And that's when it starts to look at all these partner organizations. Now, why are these things different? We're going to see some things that are very, very similar. Then we're going to see some deviations from the identity. But the fact is, there's a difference between an organizational identity and a destination identity. And heaven forbid, if trash doesn't get picked up like it should, or there's a power outage that ticks everybody off in the city, we don't want that to deposit negativity into the destination brand that we're cultivating. So there needs to be ever so slight of a difference between these organizational identities and the destination identity that we are all stewards of. It's similar to what we see right here on Rogers State. They have an academic logo, and then they have an athletic logo. And believe it or not, when you look at their admissions packages, there probably are not a whole lot of mentions of Hellcats. They create a little bit of separation there. It allows each of them to do their own business. So we're going to start off with the city. The city keeps the same icon, but adopts a more business. Essentially, it adopts a bold version of that secondary typeface. The reason that we did this is the city is going to have a lot of applications for this. It's going to be on business cards. It might be on trucks and those type of things. So being able to have a more corporate identity, being able to have a very simple way that you can expand those in your secondary line to hit on departments. And then for your departments that truly, and I've got to say this the right way, the last thing I need to do is tick off any department representatives, but we'll use Jill because I think it's fair. There is a difference between the connection that citizens have with the programs of Parks and Rec than the programs of the Planning and Development Department. So it is okay to nurture individual identities of departments that are cultivating positive quality of life. And so a lot of times what we'll see is Parks and Rec might have a deviation on the identity. A lot of times we'll see Public Works might have their own variation of that identity. Most of the time, Public Works, police, and fire are the most visible representation of city services at work. Now, of course, here you also have electric, you've got utilities, things that roll into it. So we will go through and develop an expansion system for all of the departments in the city. Now, next, we jump over to the Main Street. And of course, Main Street is an organization whose job it is to focus on the development and growth of downtown. And they operate off the four-point approach that is preached over and over again by the National Main Street Center. So what I always like to do with that is I like to see if I can find a way that we can have that logo reinforce that four-point approach. So here, we simply took the icon, we reversed it out on a field of 4 different color bars, using the same graphic tool, but creating a variation that can become uniquely theirs. And then at the bottom, you can see that we've taken each one of those 4 colors to represent the 4 committees of the organization. Now, one of the great things about branding does not mean you have one and only one logo. You can see, even on slides like this, I'm showing variations in organizational identity. It's not about having one thing to say, it's about having the right thing to say at the right time. So every organization needs the variations to be able to, if I got to shove it down in a corner or put it on a business card versus putting it on a billboard. Now, next we jump over to the chamber. Now, I've worked with chambers all over the country, and there's a thing that I call chamber diplomacy. Chamber diplomacy is seen in the way that they name themselves. Many times chambers have to have accordion fold business cards because their name has become so long, because they become the Greater So-and-so Area Regional Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development and Growth Alliance. Luckily here, all we've done is we've got our area, and that makes sense. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what your official name is. What does everybody call it? Chamber. So we've created a logo. Here they get a derivation where they can have their own icon. It is created and kind of focused on looking outward, taking care of that business community. Your job is retention and growth. It uses the same colors. It makes sense. It connects with the overall system. But then you can see a couple variations here where, depending on where you're working, it gives you the ability to walk the line between some visitor-related activities and some economic development-related activities. You need to have a suit and shorts. Exactly. You can even wear the suit jacket with the shorts. But then, even going through, seeing simplified versions and even showing like a social media icon, what that might look like. Okay, next we have CEDA. CEDA is this economic development engine. I got to tell you, most of the time, the remnants of industrial development boards, the identities are horrendous. I have one of my favorite logos that I ever changed was an economic development and industrial development board logo that included an iris, a swan, and an F-16. Now, the thing that we have to understand is this group is focused on economic growth. They need to look savvy in the economic development field. They need to look savvy among their peers in competition in that field. And then, the big thing here is we see still sticking with the same imagery, but creating one where the arrows are kind of moving forward, creating an action and movement to it. Gives them their own opportunity to kind of live in that ED world. I wasn't able to find a past logo for them. I'm not sure, one exists, but I had trouble finding it. Finally, wrap around to Visitors Bureau. And the Visitors Bureau is the only group that had ever really created a destination identity. They're going to be one of the major stewards of this identity. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to give them an organizational logo that separated them out, because right now their entire identity is kind of wrapped up in Visit Claremore. So what we've done is we've created a variation with we've given them a Claremore Convention and Visitors Bureau. We've given her one that lives inside an interstate shield. They have got tremendous development potential that they are working with Route 66 and bus tours. So they are the ones that know how to make Route 66 work for us economically. So we've given them a tool to directly connect with that. And then we've also just given them a variation with the Visit Claremore. Outside of that, showing how you can take this same look and feel and start to roll it into some of the other identities. Here we broke the star apart and turned it into the X of the Expo Center. That's what's fun about expansion, figuring out ways that you can make it all fit in together. I want to go through and talk a little bit about some collateral materials. This is where we start to see the stuff implemented. The first thing is something that I wanted to show. You all have a unique situation here in Claremore where you really don't fight with a large number of vacancies right downtown. But we also felt like we heard a pretty significant frustration from locals and consumers about wanting there to be more stuff down there. Well, when everything's full and people still want more, then it's time to figure out how to make more space. If anybody is interested in building a building and putting a restaurant in it, I think that people would like that. Throwing it out there. So, every time, I think one of the things that I like about tools like this is I like to always illustrate the point that, you know, when a business turns over, the community gets blamed. Nobody ever knows what kind of business plan they had, whether they were capitalized to the appropriate level, whether they knew what in the world they were doing, whether they opened and closed with any kind of consistency so a customer would know when to give them money. But when that business closes, people say, something's wrong with downtown, something's wrong with Claremore, something's wrong with that shopping center, something's wrong with that space. So anytime a space comes open, you have to make sure that you shape that opportunity. If it is simply communicated through for sale, then you're allowing people to craft the message however they want. But being able to build excitement around the opportunities is something that is really fun. Now, if you saw me at all this week outside of a meeting, you will know that I have a hat on all the time. It pains me to not have it on right now, but people have told me I'm not allowed to present in hats, so anymore. I used to. I think the presentations were better in hats, but that's for a different topic. So one of the things I always like to do is always just like to show, you know, I would wear this hat. And the reason that I show this is most of the time, if you go through a community, it is very rare that you will find any products that will allow consumers to show the pride that they have in the place. A lot of times, if there's a college, it's real easy to find the way to show pride there. A lot of times, you'll be able to find ways to show pride in the local high school. But showing pride in the place is very, very rare. One of the things that we hope happens out of this process is with the tools that we've created that we want to make available to the business community. We hope that the businesses will begin creating product that the consumers want and can purchase to show their pride in Claremore. So anything from hats to coffee mugs. Now this next one's for me. Skin tight cap sleeve t-shirt. You know, the thing that I really want to convey is when you're creating products, what I don't want to see is I don't want to see every volunteer organization out there deciding that they want to start giving people t-shirts. So next thing you know, they say, we need sponsors for the t-shirt. So next thing you know, you get a t-shirt that has 900 logos on the back of it that is so unbelievably ugly that the only thing you'd ever do with it is paint. We want to create things that people want to wear. Real opportunity for them to show their pride. Next, we move into signage. Now, as we go through the community, you guys have got a collection of all different kinds of signs. I was talking to some folks earlier about I was pleased to see some changes in some of the signage as over the time that I have been visiting Claremore. The sign in front of the Pizza Hut looks tremendously better than it did last time I was here, and was created in such a way that it is prepared to be able to incorporate new imagery in it. So that's really exciting. I wanted to talk about a couple things. I think one of the things that people really focus in on is they focus on gateway signage. It's like, we got to go out to our city limit. We got to put up a gateway because, by God, we want everybody to know exactly when they come into our city. Now, typically, what's happening at city limits isn't necessarily the most attractive parts in our community. But by God, we're going to let them know that they've entered into our jurisdiction. And then from there, we welcome them and don't tell them anything else. It's kind of like inviting them into your house and not telling them where the bathroom is. So the next thing that we need to do after gateway signage is what we call trailblazer signage. Trailblazer signage is vehicular-oriented signage, and that signage typically has up to three destinations on each sign. Why 3? It's not because you only have 3 things to see. It's because any more than that, they become ineffective. So if you have more destinations, it simply means that you need a couple more signs. Or you need to employ a better way of communicating to people. So if you have, a collection of museums, maybe you point people towards museums until you get to appropriate deviation points in their path, so that they follow a sign knowing that they're museums, and then they can make a choice to go straight to J.M. Davis, turn left to go to Will Rogers. You get my point. So these are very, very cool tools to have in the community. They do a great job of introducing and reintroducing and reinforcing the personality of the community. Something else that they do is they create a sense of comfort for the visitor. They feel guided. Now, if you invest in things like this and you carry them all the way through, those visitors are not of the mindset that they have to park in front of a business. The visitor has a higher level of motivation behind their travel. So if you invest in a system like this, then you can send them to a surface lot and have them walk a block or 2. They're visitors. They're for the experience. It starts to separate out the demand on your parking capacity from your locals to your visitor traffic. Now, I want to talk about these two for a second. We've put a graphic on the back. We've done some really, really cool things with these signs before. We've integrated in healthy walking trails and put walking distance data on the back of the signs and been able to apply for Healthy Communities grants to help pay for wayfinding signage. You can do anything you want with these. These are great opportunities to help people get through the community. You can take a similar sign size and blank and begin to share visitor information, orienting them with the destinations that they could discover and hearing some of the stories of the communities. These can go either in significant places or they can go in the transition points where people might park in a parking lot and become a pedestrian. So being very strategic with signage is important. If you go through and you look at these, you look at Trailblazers, you look at a comprehensive wayfinding system, what you should see in your community is you should see an overall decrease in sign quantity. Typically, the way that communities treat signs is in an as-needed basis. Somebody identifies that someone got lost, so we need a sign. So you put a sign up for this, and then you put up a sign for this, and then you put up a sign for this. There should be a certain amount of consolidation that can occur as you go through a process like this. And then finally, the most important sign in any stable is the parking sign. I have never been to a community that didn't have a parking problem. But I'm here to tell you today, my goal, and I think everybody on the Main Street Board's goal, is we want to have a parking problem in downtown. Now, what do we mean by that? There are three kinds of parking problems. There's a parking awareness problem. That means the people don't know where the parking resources are. The second one is a parking management problem. It means that people who shouldn't be parking in front of stores park in front of those stores and leave those cars there all day long. And the third is a parking capacity problem. And a parking capacity means there simply are not enough spaces in a district to support the demand of consumers in that district. Well, I'm here to tell you that as a downtown transitions into a destination status, the motivation of the consumer increases and their willingness to walk increases. When you hear people complaining about customers who aren't willing to come into a store because they can't park right in front of it, that is what we call a convenience mentality. And I get it, I understand, but if I want to buy an ice cream cone, I'm going to park and walk to get the ice cream cone. There's certain businesses out there, downtown pharmacies, things like that. They need to have spaces for elderly customers that are simply coming in to pick up prescriptions. Being able to create an appropriate management plan for the needs of your downtown. And that means that every single space in your downtown doesn't have to be treated the same. I can tell you this. I've been working downtown all week. This is my third time coming to the community, my third time having meetings downtown. I have never in the entire time not been able to find a space in the block that I was trying to go to. Maybe I'm the luckiest guy in the planet. But the fact is, we want to make a parking problem. We want to create so much demand that we have to start addressing capacity. Okay, next thing that we want to talk about is street banners. I think everybody's probably seen these in communities across the country, and a lot of times street banners, we see them like, oh, aren't they pretty? Those are so pretty. Well, I hope that what we can do is we can start to think strategically about these banners. What should banners do? Well, first of all, if banners are going to go into a place where cars and pedestrians coexist, banners should slow down the traffic. Well, how in the world would that be the case? Well, when you're in your car, they're in the upper corners of what we call your visual cone, and that color and that slight movement, studies have shown, actually slows people down. There's even, we think at this point, probably a subconscious indicator that banners like this that help to close in on the scale of a road are a subconscious indicator that we need to slow down our cars. Now, in addition to that, a lot of times what we see is we see the desire to put a different banner on every single street pole. I was in a community last week and they had decided that what they wanted to do was, that the way they phrased it was, we want our main street to be an art gallery. Well, it made it look like an epileptic seizure. And the thing that they didn't understand was that there is tremendous communication that is happening to our consumer through the rhythm of the banners. When banners appear and when they cease to appear, tells a consumer where is special and where is not. We can use banners to connect places that consumers don't seem to think are connected. We can use banners to help people start to walk down perpendiculars of a linear main street where they might not typically exercise those type habits. So think strategically about these. These are far more than just pretty. They should be used as tools. Street banners can go in the light poles in parking lots. And when they're in parking lots, they should have things that they promote, like expo centers and venues and museums, so that as people get out of the cars, they're introduced to things that they might be able to experience. Does that make sense? I just rocked everybody's world, that street banner. It's like, man, I didn't know that there was so much behind street banners. I'm going to drive down the street and say, wow, look at that street banner. All right. I like street banners. I think street banners make a huge, huge difference. They really do. The other thing about, I tell people all the time, they talk about ugly downtowns. You've got a great downtown. I'm very, very impressed with you downtown. But I worked in some that are real dogs. And they're sitting there trying to figure out how they can fix their buildings up. They're like, well, how can we get $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 and make some of these building facades look better? And I always say you can take $4,000 and put up street banners, and that'll do it. That'll buy you some time. So with this, we're going to roll around to some marketing message because I'm at the 45-minute mark, and I promised I was going to keep this right at an hour. For those of you that in the audience who are featured in these photos, I'm sorry if you get embarrassed, but I think everything that we're showing is really, really nice. One of the big things that we wanted to do was we wanted to start connecting people with the place. We wanted to start highlighting the faces that you'll see when you come downtown. All week long, I heard people talking about Milwaukee. All week long. And, it is everywhere USA. I tell the story sometimes where a couple years ago, I bought my wife a new Toyota Camry. Brand new, straight off the lot. And I had a 67 Mustang. So people would look at her brand new car and say, that's a really pretty car. And then they look at my Mustang and they say, that's a really pretty car. Well, in 10 years, she's going to have a 10-year-old Camry. And I'm still going to have a really pretty car. Well, you guys have a real American classic. And you should be proud of that. Because in 10 years, 10 more years, it's just going to be a dated commercial center. The commercial centers are fickle, fickle beasts, and they move like this. It's like the stampedes that all of a sudden it's like, wait, Google what? Okay, let's go over here. So just understand that as markets are constantly changing and shifting around you, you offer a true, authentic experience here. And you need to use that as the catalyst to promote overall community growth. And hopefully in the meantime, capture some of that larger national commercial retail that you deserve. So we created a series of ads, and What we wanted to really do with this was we wanted to start to take that tagline of clearly more and start to expand the meaning of it. And we can do that through people. We can do it through images. We can show off the products that are available. We can show off the personality of the place. You have got some phenomenal stores downtown. Now, believe it or not, if you haven't gone and explored downtown, none of this is stock. These are your downtown businesses. Nothing like books in a bathtub, right? But again, showing off the people, the places, the products that you can find, and starting to craft the quality message of what Claremore has to offer. And all of a sudden, the diversity of retail that you have starts to craft a pretty dynamic net for all of the things that you have to offer. And you sit there and you show this, and then you say, Best Buy what? You offer a different experience. When people need to go and buy whatever it is they might need to buy at Best Buy, that's all well and good. But one of the things that we know that we need to do here in Claremore, and one of the reasons that we're taking the opportunity to highlight the business owners, is we need to cultivate a better dialogue. The point was made on Tuesday night that every time somebody goes out of the community and spends money on retail somewhere else, they're giving that municipality operating capital. That is money out of our pocket going somewhere else. But the flip side of that is, if the products that they need in this community are not available in this community, then the consumer is forced to go out and market. We've got to cultivate the dialogue. We've got to create a better way that our consumers feel invested enough to talk to our business community and start to craft and manipulate and change the product mix that is available right here in it's funny. I found out that Atwood's carries sheets, right? Was that you, Amy, that said that? I mean, Claremore, believe it or not, has got a lot of stuff here. But you've got to create that dialogue. You've got to give the business community the opportunity to respond to them. Now, we talked a little about Will Rogers. You will see there were a couple times that his head appeared in some of these ads. But I also think that the thing that is truly lasting is his words. I try my best not to bring stories from my home, but one of the things that we've done in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, that people seem to really love is in our downtown, we have put quotes in the sidewalk. And you will see people as they walk will just stop and they'll look, and you can see them, you can see that kind of act of contemplation. One of the great things about Will Rogers is he is so unbelievably relevant. So I urge you to think about things that you can do to better integrate the essence of his greatness into your community so that it can inspire the next generation of greatness. Again, with each one of these messages, with each one of these images, you begin to deposit more and more positive experiences into the identity. You can see that with this, you can partner up with organizations, you can adopt their branding and still work cooperatively. You really have got some fascinating resources here didn't wear it. I didn't get by. I'm getting by next time. I got scared that I knew that if I went to the gun museum, then there wouldn't be a presentation. So, but you know, I want to stop here for a second because I want to give some accolades. I do this a lot. I do this all over the country. I was struck by how amazing a job the J.M. Davis Museum has done at getting their imagery and message out into the community. I saw their posters all over this town. I saw it in offices. I saw it in businesses. I was really, really impressed with that. And it's one thing to see it repeated. It's another thing for, and this might sound arrogant, but like, I loved what I was seeing. The tone of the messages, there was one, and I can't remember, it might have been in you guys' store with the samurai sword and the Lone Ranger, and it says from samurai to kimosabi or something like that. Great, great marketing, great message, consistently delivered. So good job to you. We want to make sure that we can integrate in with those organizations that have already established their own tone and their own brand. Where are you? She snuck in. There she is. There she is. Had a great conversation with some artists in Studio B. You know, great things happening. I mean, literally, we didn't stage this, just walked in on it. That's our. Always have to end there. All right, y'all. It's 7:55 or 6:55. I got right in. That's what we've got to show you tonight. I want to start off by thanking you all. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your attention. And I want to give us a little bit of time for some comments, reaction, that kind of stuff. And then they do need to turn this room, so we can't hang out too